Good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming. Throughout these occasions, you have seen many charts, many structures, many drawings on this chalkboard. Tonight we'll have precious little, but we will have something really important to talk about, because it's really based on all those things that you have practiced before and we talked about before during this series. So if you remember, we talked about the basic characteristics of existence, how we live in this world, how we live in this body. We talked about cause and effect. We talked about the structure of our consciousness. We talked about practice, don't know mind, this very clear mirror-like mind. And lastly, we talked about Chong An practice, which tests this don't know, and makes this don't know more mature and applicable in many, many situations. So what is the result? What is the probable or possible or desirable result of all these endeavors? And I mentioned situation, that we perceive the situation clearly. I mentioned relationship, that we manage our relationships clearly. And I also mentioned function, our actions, that we function clearly. Now, let us make one more step and look at the quality of our perception. Look at the quality of our relationships and function and what kind of situation we create. And if your don't know is clear and your cognition is clear, then you digest all your thinking and your thinking becomes wisdom. If you digest all your feelings, all your emotions, then all of this starts to function along the lines of compassion. And if you digest all your impulses, all your willpower, everything that you ever wanted to do for various reasons, for various motivations, then your will, your action, will turn into true power. So power, strength, endurance, all these together. Okay? These three qualities are really important. So what is the usual mistake that we make when we look at these qualities? We believe that wisdom is just thinking. We believe that compassion is just emotion. And we believe that power is just pure, raw strength. I am stronger than you type of power. Okay? So let us look at these qualities more clearly, first from an individual point of view, and then from a group point of view, which is a lot more interesting, I think. And then we will see how these qualities usually operate correctly. So let's start from the bottom up. I deliberately put power at the bottom because most people would have wanted power on the top. Okay? Power is somehow the most important, either organizational or political power or financial power. That seems to be the most important driving force these days, and yet it should be subject to and under the qualities of wisdom and compassion. And I probably don't even have to explain why. The answer is so evident and clear. There's nothing wrong with power, should that be financial, political, material. But the governance of that power should be very clear. And if the qualities of wisdom and compassion are lacking from power, we have a serious problem. Open your television, look at the newspaper. You'll find it there. Okay? So power really comes from one mind, this not moving mind. Okay? But this strong mind is able to listen and able to think clearly. Okay? So if that doesn't happen, power becomes corrupted. Corrupted by what we call I. The notion of ego or I as an isolated entity corrupts everything. It takes away wisdom, it takes away compassion, and it takes away true strength. Okay? Let me quote a very important poem, which is quoted by Zen Master Sung San. I think it's a good Taoist poem. And it's in one of our books called Bone of Space, you know. And this says, "Very soft is true strength. With harmony comes luck. Follow situation, get happiness. Forbearance will make you a great man." Okay? This is a very clear poem by Zen Master Sung San, and it's fantastic because it tells you about true power. True power comes from not moving mind. But this not moving mind is not like a rock, unable to listen and unable to see. This not moving mind means you don't make opposites. You don't make discriminations. You stay one. And no matter how much they try to break you, how much they try to make you think in terms of good and bad, friend and enemy, you don't do that. You stay as one, undivided, non-dualistic, non-thinking. That's true power. So in our Zen language, this power is associated with strong center. But if we say strong center, what does that really mean? Usually we point to our tanjon, okay? So the strong center can also be deceptive. Strong center really means your mind doesn't move. It stays like a mirror. It doesn't break up. It doesn't start thinking in terms of opposites, okay? So this is a very important point, because the moment our minds are broken up into concepts and we start to attach to these concepts and identify with these concepts, there is a war, ladies and gentlemen, first inside and maybe then outside. Earlier I've talked about the spiritual war, and that's something that the great hero, the Daeung, won. That's why Shakyamuni Buddha is called the Daeung, the great hero. He didn't become a conqueror of distant lands and lots of human beings, causing innumerable suffering, but he became the great hero of conquering himself, conquering his I, conquering his anger, desire, and ignorance. And if we do this and we keep a clear and strong center, then naturally compassion and wisdom arise. Why? Because in your mirror you see everyone has the same substance. So fundamentally we are the same. Fundamentally we share this human nature. Okay? So it's impossible that compassion would not arise, because your suffering becomes mine. My suffering sometimes becomes yours. Okay? So that's the deep root of compassion, which again is not emotional. Sometimes people are taught, feel compassion towards everybody. Then they start to generate their emotional engines, you know, and they start to kind of generate something which sometimes artificial, okay? And then people have a problem keeping it up. It's of course a problem, because it doesn't come from the root of your clear, don't know mind, your strong center, but it comes just from your emotions. Then it takes a lot of energy. And sometimes it breaks, and out of this compassionate attitude comes this great anger and intolerance. Boom! Suddenly it flips over. Right? You've seen it. So compassion really comes from this one mind which perceives the other as you. Okay? It's even deeper than Buddhism, or older than the Buddha's teaching. It was also in the Vedas. Okay? The holy books of Hinduism. Okay? And last year we mentioned this, okay? In 2 Sanskrit sentences you can just get the whole meaning of it. One, and don't remember the Sanskrit if you don't want to, just remember the meaning, okay? One is Tat, Ram, Asi, which means you are that. You are that. in this clear mirror mind, you are that. And that's the root of compassion. Okay? So you and the world are not separate if you have no dualistic thinking. You and the other person are not separate if you have no dualistic thinking. So you are that. It's probably the hardest practice, you know. But really start with your family. Start with your best friend or start with your worst enemy. You are that. Okay? And the other one is etad vaitat, which means that this is not different from that. So first is your relationship to the world, sharing the same substance, and next is everything shares the same substance. Okay? So basically that means you and the universe are not different. This is truly important because the kind of mind that you create creates the universe. We have talked about it when we mentioned the Avatamsaka Sutra. It's there, but it's not just in the sutras. It can be your own true experience. Okay? So if your center is strong and your mind is clear, then you digest your emotions, become compassion, digest your thinking, become wisdom, and all of this results in helping this world becoming clear, becoming the Buddha's land. Because we have the potential to do that, ladies and gentlemen. We have. We can. And I hope we will. Because we barely have any choice in our dimensional existence or sentient beings existence. If you remember the first of this series, we established some pretty serious facts. One is that we live in 3 dimensions of space and 1 dimension of time. We don't live anywhere else. We live in these dimensions. And we are impermanent because of this 1 dimension in time. It starts, it finishes. You cannot make a U-turn like in a green light, you know, in a soul intersection. I'm sorry. You can't. That's time. Alright? So these 3 qualities are the necessary results of correct practice. And I've just said the individual outcomes of this, reducing your suffering and reducing the others' suffering. And now let us look at this kind of at a group level or social level. Now that's where the game begins. So when we have these 3 qualities, we clearly recognize that we do not live alone. We live in a society, currently 6.6 billion people on this earth. 6.6 billion people. Now, if you imagine this as a big pie, then you see also that this pie is divided over many, many parameters like race, creed, gender, continental location, etc., etc. And many times when we look at these divisions, the way we look at human beings, we consider divisions first and we forgot the big picture. That first and foremost, we are human beings, we are sentient beings, and we share something really deep and something really common. But we look at distinctions first. Okay? And since we look at the dualities first and oneness last or never, we create problems based on these dualities. This can, and it is happening in the world, you know. Look at everywhere basically. But the more sad phenomenon is when it happens within one society, because one society is like a country or a kind of ethnic group which should have a kind of more explicit consciousness of one, of being one, because they share the same language, the same color of skin, etc., etc., etc. It should be easier for people to realize that, but the ability for human beings to make discriminations and distinctions are infinite. Okay? And that's why group culture is so important. Okay? And Korea has it. So please take good care of it. It's your job. It's our job. Because everything which was within the framework of Yukyo or Confucianism was permitted as long as the structure and function of society remained intact and unhindered. Remember that? It was really important. Confucianism is not a religious system. It's not based on any creed. Therefore, it tolerates any creed and any religion as long as the function and the basic set of relationships in the society are not damaged, ruptured, or hindered. It's a very important point. Remember that when you make your daily decisions. Okay? And the moment that the divisions take precedence, then the big picture, the big group, the big family is lost. And then there are smaller and smaller groups fighting each other. And that's a waste of resources, a waste of time and energy, and first and foremost, the very source of suffering. We create suffering for each other because we look at the discriminations and the distinctions first, and oneness never or last. Okay? So, how is it applied in the group? This is very important. And your culture, the group culture, which is based on some of the most lasting values of society along the lines of Confucianism, your culture tells you, and that is, which we have established, is structure. Sajang, Bujang, everyone else. Okay? Clear, right? So, it's like a tribe. You have a chieftain, you have a medicine man, you have the chieftain's family, and then you have everyone else. There will always be people on the top, be just under the top, in the middle, and at the bottom. It will be inevitable. Anytime we talked about society, we established that fact that human karma will always be different and human substance will always be one. Remember that, right? We talked about India, we talked about China, we talked about Korea, and many other parts of the world. But what is really happening, that the top believes that they are not in the same world as anybody below. And that's a problem, because this is not true. And in my area of the world where I was born and east of it, people at the bottom, they got so upset and so frustrated that they made what we call revolution to annihilate the top. And what came was the worst of all, called communism. You know? Because this top, it will always exist. So they annihilated probably the most potential part of society, which has been existing for centuries, and then they made a new one, another one. And likewise, it didn't connect with the rest of society, so we had another transition 42 years later, where we put another one on top. Now we say this is the real one, but it turns out it doesn't really work. But there's no other revolution to make. It's not useful. We found out that it takes away a lot of things, especially civil liberties, which are really important for our clear existence and clear life. So, what is the most important part of this chart? It's what we call evolution. Evolution, not revolution. Okay? Please. My country has been an expert at revolutions. 1848, that was one. 1919, that was another one. Small communist takeover for 133 days. then it was crushed. Okay? Then 1956, crushed. 1848 was crushed in 1849. Okay? 1990, peaceful takeover, situation unresolved to the present day. Society doesn't know where it goes. Big disorientation. No values, no clear values. No structure, explicitly only the administration. Situation, not clear. Relationship, not clear. Function, not clear. Big problem. Evolution, you already understand, starts with you. In the mind. Moment to moment, produce your mind evolution, please. That's our only chance. Because a mind which is on the path creates a society which is on the path. That's the only way. With external changes, we just change the top, or sometimes you change the one layer below, and nothing essentially changes because the mind doesn't change. It does not develop through power, through compassion, and through wisdom. And when it's not developed, everything remains the same, or worse, because you upset everything. Okay? So evolution is necessary, but also we can see how it results in revolution when this becomes separate, okay? And then the rest of society believes the only way to make a change is to cut off our own heads. Okay? This is really, really serious. Because the smarter we are, the easier it is to follow our thinking, right? So very, very smart people can do a lot of damage. And then these discriminations will slice up society. It doesn't matter what kind of discriminations we think of, religious, ethnic, linguistic. In Hungary and in Central Europe, we've had them all in the last 150 years. We know how bad they are. Okay? It's very serious, as if not just the last 150, but even before, with our interaction of our own minorities and the greater nations, as if we were the testing ground for all this. And we can prove that none of the discriminations work or bring happiness. So that's our responsibility. We believe that we are just 1 per 6.6 billion, an infinitely small amount, small percentage of the entire humanity, but mentally speaking, this is not so. If your mind becomes stronger, clearer, more compassionate, then in those qualities you are beyond the average. And with that you can help. And this is not a distinction, it's just a fact. It's a simple fact that if you have more, you can give. If you have less, you need from someone else. Okay? So, this kind of notion of group first, individual next, may be hard-coded in Koreans and some other remaining societies on earth, but truly the last remaining Confucianist-based society on this planet is Korean. And that's why I address the public with this really solemn and sincere request: please keep your group culture and extend it. Not just keep it for Koreans, extend it for the world. Think of the entire 6.6 billion of population as your family. You can do that much easier than those who only thought in terms of I. That's a longer distance, okay? So when this family mind is extended, then slowly, slowly all humanity can work like a huge family. Because we live in a global village. We live such within an easy reach from each other that sooner or later it will be impossible to think otherwise, sensibly, compassionately, wisely, than one family. Either we start thinking like that, or we inflict so much suffering on each other that it's beyond any measure, it's beyond any concept. Okay? So that's where my introduction ends, and that's where I would like to ask for your questions. Yeah?
From time to time I am confused between compassion and sympathy.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. At first I was very confused, but strictly speaking, I think compassion is a kind of higher concept. For example, if you two people saw a beggar on the street, probably the sympathetic person can solve his or her problem through by giving the beggar kind of coin or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But the person who is very compassionate cannot solve that problem by giving her or him some coins, because that person has to suffer exactly the same pain as the beggar on the street. So I really want our society, the people, to be more compassionate than just the sympathetic. But my question is, how can we be more compassionate? Is it can I build up some kind of compassion through, studying, or through being a religious person? How can we build those kinds of things?
So first of all, I would really like to take away the distinction between sympathetic or compassionate, because it's just one kind of approach and another kind of approach. And conceptual distinctions in this case don't help. We don't talk about here, we talk about really here, okay? So the heart. And how can you become a more compassionate person is not through more and more thinking. It's more and more practice. Any kind of spiritual practice is good. But any kind of spiritual practice you do must have one and at least one important characteristics, which is take away I. Take away I, my, me. Then compassion or sympathy, whatever you call it, without concepts, without distinctions appear. Okay? Naturally. If you sit, again, I'm sorry to refer back to my own family, if you sit for 90 days with 20 people around you and you don't talk to each other, you don't relate to each other observably, but you share the same practice, it's stronger bondage than physical brothers or sisters. And nothing happened. Nothing. You shared the same space, the same time, the same practice, the same food, and something deep came out. Okay? So practice, 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 whatever your practice is, and then your I, my, me, your thinking just goes down, disappears, and then compassion is born naturally. You don't have to study more books for that. Okay? You may have to if your intellectual map is kind of missing something and you are really curious or thirsty for knowledge. But that's ending very soon. That has to end in a couple of months or 1 or 2 years. Okay? Just these books won't solve it. They give you very good guidance though. And Bosalim, if you remember the Zen circle, then 90 degrees is the end of book studies, of intellectual studies. And then after that you go to 180, which is the experience that we mentioned under spiritual studies or practicing. And 270 is the freedom which you attain. And 360 is the application of that freedom. In this case, somebody is hungry, give them food. Somebody is thirsty, give them drink. Okay? So this is a very important point. With studies you can go to a certain distance, but very short distance. And then you have to practice, become free from your I, my, me, and apply this freedom correctly. Then naturally compassion, wisdom, and true power come.
But in our society, as time goes by, the people are getting more and more competitive. Without subduing or domineering the people, our rivals. Our rivals could be my friends or acquaintances around me. So this is a very sad thing, but from the Koreans, majority of Koreans' viewpoint, to be the winner because winner takes it all.
That's what winners believe, actually, that winner takes it all, but it's not true. Please continue.
It's very difficult to practice compassion in Korean society, very competitive society.
Actually, you can, because competing doesn't rule out compassion. It's really important. First of all, you know that the other wants the same thing as you, basically success, whatever it is. And again, I have to refer to some of my shopping experiences in Korea. I go to this huge line of stores and everyone sells roughly the same thing, whether it's electronics or tools or car parts or whatever. You know, you go to various parts of Seoul and it's like a colony, a little colony of car parts sellers, a little colony of, you know, tools sellers. Amazing, it's right in the city center, not far from here. And then you go to Yongsan for the electronic stuff, Uchiro for some of the parts, you know, this mechanical stuff, and amazing, they are all together. And then I go into one store and I want something and they don't have it. They go immediately to their colleagues, which is their competitor, and they get it from them. And next thing they know that their competitor recommends someone else. So competing doesn't mean to cut the other's throat. Competing means we are the same family, but I also strive to be better. I help the other. It's necessary, because if I don't have my friend, if I don't have a team around me, my own business, my own turnover becomes less. But you improve your quality. You try to be better than the other. That's okay. But you do not annihilate the other. You do not cut the opportunity from the other. You want to become better on what we say positive terms, not on negative terms. So you don't hurt the other so that you could become better. This is really important. You could see it during the last presidential campaign. Anywhere where negative campaign occurred, the person who made the negative campaign got less. People are very sensitive for that. Competition and compassion, they are not ruling each other out. We go together, it's true, in one family. And we all try to be better, but it doesn't mean that we separate ourselves from the other, we humiliate the other, we lie about the other, we try to take things away from the other. That's not correct. Okay? Cycling. When you see bicycle, they're all in this group. Okay? Sometimes one takes the lead, sometimes the other takes the lead. Sometimes one takes it. If they don't go together, if they form what we call a breakaway team, sometimes 2, 3, 1, they break away. And sometimes they have this 2, 3, 5, 6 kilometer advance. And 90% of the case, the group catches them. The group catches them, then they are absorbed, and mostly they are more tired and they are left behind. It's very interesting. And then at the end of the race, everybody in the group, very quickly, go, 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 go. Okay? So that's the way we can operate. And I doubt that the winner takes it all. Why? Look at the current situation in the world. We say that profit goes to the country which sold more products, right? So that's where the money is. But if your buyer, if your customer doesn't have more cash, then you as a producer suffer because you can't sell. So rather than thinking of it as a winner and loser, this is win, this is lose. So this is seemingly losing, this is winning. Okay? I could have started with this, win, lose. But this is not true. This is true because winning and losing, they become part of the same cycle. One cannot exist without the other. Okay? Don't think that you have this fixed existence, this fixed tendency for profit and it will rise forever. Because if you don't have this in your mind, and we can delete the win and the loss, it's just up and down, plus or minus. all the opposites, they revolve. If we have this, then our world begins to operate differently because we create a different world. Okay? These days, if you look at again the last 150 years of economic history of the West, look what happens. That's what happens. So we get a lot of wealth, and then suddenly in 1872 the United States economy collapsed. Then it gets a lot more, and then 1929, 1933 collapse. It goes back up. Then we had a couple of pitches in the 70s, one in the 70s and one in the 80s, the kind of black days on the stock exchange, but not really big shake. Now is the big shake. Okay? 2008, 2009, and who knows how long we are there. Okay? Because of our excessive wish to win and possess. Because when you possess, you also have to give. And when you don't have, you will get. If we have a different view, a different concept of self and group, man and world, then our economies and our societies and everything we do would start to operate like that. And that's why China is very happy to help the United States, because if they don't, their factories shut down. Competitors. China and the United States, very big competitors, right? China has so much money that if they wanted to break the United States, basically buy them up, they could have done that. Okay? But they don't ask the credit back, they give more. They give more. The reason being is they want to keep their 1.3 billion people and the entire workforce and the entire production base working. Because if not, people will starve in China. Okay? So remember this. It works like the Tai Chi. Okay? It works like the yin and the yang. They are supporting each other. Opposites support each other. Winners and losers, they belong together. Profit and loss, they belong together. So if people say, oh, we have only profit, and they don't give anything away, they don't even reinvest, they are sitting on it, soon, go down. So, recycle. If you have, you give. If you don't give, you have to get. And then you look at competition from a different point of view, because direction is very important. The objective of the competition is very important. So what is it that we really want to get by competing? What is it? And then you realize, no matter what it is, you can't keep it for yourself. You can't. It burns on you. It makes you rotten. You have to recycle it. You have to give it to someone else. This opposite thinking. Big opposites, big downfall. Then peace. Then more opposites appear. Peak of the opposites, war, again down, peace. Aren't we just stupid as humans? Deeply? We sometimes are. But the same population, the same beings, we have this infinite potential to become Buddhas. Remember that. Okay? So why this cycle, if we establish it, turn around? Why these cycles turn around? What is the result of this? That's very important. And we have to have some clear objective to that. Okay? We believed that the environment will last forever, as it is. Now we know that it won't. So, technically speaking, we reached a saturation point when the Earth cannot take anymore what we're doing. They say that in 2050, if we go on like this, we need another Earth to supply us, and the only problem we have is that we don't have another Earth. We have only this one. Okay? So that's why changing the basic concepts, how we think, changing the way that we relate to each other, changing the way that we really relate to this planet is essential and not for our survival. We die anyway. But what kind of life we live here, how much we can get enlightenment, how closer we can get to Buddhahood, that depends on the way we manage this earth. If we mismanage this earth, we will be always dealing with our material, political, social, financial difficulties. We won't kind of get out of our karma. So the essential part, the most important reason why we had better create a peacefully evolving society is so that the more of us could get enlightenment. This is a fundamental purpose. Again, in whatever way. Enlightenment is not the property of Buddhists or Zen followers. Okay? More and more of us could improve our mind quality. And for that we need the basics done. We have to stop messing up this planet. And then we can do our job. Our original human job. So, thank you for your question. More questions?
Speaking of that statue, what is the function of the statue?
A reminder. It's a reminder. It's a reminder that there's somebody who went before you. It's a reminder that there's somebody higher to respect. And it's a reminder that you can do the same thing as he did. Okay? When you bow, this bowing actually means that your mind and the Buddha's mind become one. You leave your karma behind. You discard your small self. And you and the Buddha become one. Okay? It's not worshipping something. It's becoming one with something. It's transforming into something. The magic of human mind is that anything you want, anything you can do, is just a matter of time and energy. Anything is possible. So if you put this right before you, that you transform your consciousness, you become clear and you become Buddha, and you bow to that, you become one with that, that's what happens. Yeah. Okay? And if you look at it the other way around, if something happens and it's unexpected, it came into your life, either as a person or as an event, then really look closely, because you haven't seen something inside. Somehow you took that direction. Somehow you wanted to meet that person deep, deep down in your consciousness. Somehow you worked towards that goal. You put your energy to that direction and it appeared. So it works vice versa too. So if you really see things that you don't really agree with, do not fight them. If you see people with different views, do not argue with them. Rather, clear your mind. Rather, clear your consciousness and develop this true power, true wisdom, true compassion. And by transforming yourself, you transform the world. No matter how long it takes. That's the way. Evolution is the way. It has always been that. But sometimes we forget and we want a quick fix to our problems in the way I think is right. And then everybody else suffers. So nobody is right or wrong on this planet, but it's our job to really realize what's going on here. And start with yourself. Start recognizing what's going on inside. And clear that out. Transform that into the Buddha that you want. And that's why Buddha statue is important, and also candles and incense are important. Okay? Have some natural light, have some different scent in the room. It changes space. Okay?